turbulent situation here in Romania. I was asked by Richard from the Chinese geopolitical channel Awakening Richard, which I've recommended previously, to do an update or a short summary rather about the situation here in Romania, the political situation. So I was thinking of doing just that because commenting on the situation here might be a bit dangerous if I do it in Romania, let's say, as my Romanian followers probably know. Most of the people somehow associated with the sovereigntist movement here in Romania have been called to the police station this morning to give statements or to be, I don't know, investigated or all sorts of things. So yeah, I would prefer not to be very popular in Romania. I'd rather give my opinion in English and give a rather neutral description of what's going on. So I'll start from the beginning because Richard, as I told you, this Chinese geopolitical broadcast that you should definitely follow, Awakening Richard. So Richard is probably not very acquainted with the situation from the very beginning. So Romania has had elections this autumn winter, or it's tried to have. So there was an attempt to do a first round of the presidential elections, and there were several sovereigntist candidates that joined the race. There were five of them. One of them was George Simeon, who is the leader of the strongest sovereigntist party here in Romania. Then another one was Diana Șoșoacă. She's the leader of the second strongest sovereigntist party. And there were three independents. No, sorry, there were two independents. Răzvan Constantinescu, a doctor who and a professor who was very adamant against the restrictions during the pandemic and against the discrimination of the students of the medical university where he teaches. And there was also another independent candidate. So Mr. Răzvan Constantinescu was from a political party that had just been established and that was outside parliament. And there was another candidate, a movie director, who had just won an award in Moscow and had allegedly met Vladimir Putin. His name is Ciprian Mega. And another independent candidate, Călin Georgescu, who I knew of for some years. I think I've gotten to learn of him during the protests against shale gas explorations here in Romania. He seemed rather a fringe figure in the sense that he had been in governmental positions and he had also been a diplomat, a UN diplomat. However, ever since maybe 10 years ago, when I started to know of him, he has been revolving around politics without much success. So I didn't think much of him. I did not think that so many people would actually vote for him. But anyway, so these were the five candidates that enrolled in the race. And out of these five, three were eliminated. So the signatures that they had to file in order for their candidacies to be considered were annulled in the case of Răzvan Constantinescu and Ciprian Mega. And because Diana Șoșoacă was too big for any alleging that her signatures might be forged or something like this, they cancelled her candidacy at the Constitutional Court. So therefore, just two sovereigntist candidates went forward out of 14. Those two being George Simeon and Călin Georgescu. Apparently, Călin Georgescu had a campaign on TikTok. I don't have TikTok. I don't really like that format. I rather prefer long formats like I prefer YouTube over TikTok and I prefer Facebook over X, even though the censorship is much stronger on these platforms. But I like the long form versions of things, longer form clips, longer form text. So, and because I was hoping that the sovereignist candidate would actually make it into the second round. I was advising my readers on Facebook to vote for George Simeon because the opinion polls gave Călin Georgescu a 3%, 4% vote in the first round, so he seemed kind of a useless candidate. Apparently, something happened on TikTok in the days before the first round, so in the end, Călin Georgescu managed to win the first round completely, so to score the highest number of votes. I was not aware of many people voting for him in my bubble on Facebook, but that's just my bubble. So everybody was voting for George Simeon, or almost everybody, and those 3 or 4 people that I had known to vote for Călin Georgescu, I had always tried to persuade them to not waste their vote on a useless candidate that would not make it into the second round, that had no chance of going forward, and so on. So I was actually trying to dissuade people from voting for Călin Georgescu for pragmatic reasons, because the other sovereigntist candidate seems to be better placed. In the end, it seems that the other sovereigntist candidates, so the one that the polls were giving higher chances of winning the race, finished fourth. And the second round was to be fought between Călin Georgescu and this lady, Elena Lasconi, from this. She's like the Annalina Baerbock of Romania, if you will. So one of these puppet figures of the global elite, that the United States places in different positions in various countries, like Sanna Marin, like Jacinda Ardern, like Trudeau, even though he's a man. So anyway, yeah, imbeciles who don't know anything and who once they get into power, their only way of ruling the country is through their advisors, their American appointed advisors. So this would be the case. This would have been the case with Elena Lasconi. She used to be a TV presenter, but not even of serious news, just of like entertainment stuff. And she used to star in commercials. She's very uneducated in the sense that she graduated basically after 1990, after capitalism came to Romania. All of these degree mills were established. So degree factories, some private universities, many of them unaccredited, or so she graduated from this university, which is accredited, but in a subsidiary in a city close to where she was living, which was not accredited, and she graduated with very low grades. Anyway, essentially, these are just places where you can buy your degree. You can just pay off the teachers, pay off the exams, and at the end you can receive a diploma. So this is what she graduated from, and in I don't know, like tourism management or something like this. Anyway, basically she's clueless. She knows nothing about anything, and a presidency, a Lasconi presidency, would have been a complete catastrophe. Meaning that she would not have been in charge. So there are some people behind her, some advisors, quote unquote. These people would have run the country. I have some suspicions about who they might be. Lasconi, all throughout her electoral campaign, stated that she would do absolutely anything that the Americans wanted her to do. Given this background, this war in the background, she said that she would involve Romania militarily in the war in case Ukraine lost. So she was essentially the most pro-war candidate. And the other guy, Călin Georgescu, was the most pro-peace candidate. So, okay, both him and Simion were sovereigntist. However, Simion was more mainstream. He did not question Romania's membership in NATO. He did not question Romania's membership in the European Union. Călin Georgescu did all that. He did not actually say that he would pull Romania out of these institutions, but he would say that everything needed to be renegotiated, including the missile shield, the NATO missile shield that Romania is hosting on its territory. So pretty brave, pretty brave words from Călin Georgescu. And he was the most pro-peace candidate, essentially. So in all the interviews during the first round, he was asked, so how will you continue to support Ukraine? Not if, but how, because somehow this is framed as a given. And he would always say, I will not support Ukraine. I am running to be president of the Romanians, and I will support the Romanians, not the Ukrainians. This is what he kept on saying over and over again. So he was the most pro-peace candidate, and that lady was the most pro-war candidate and an idiot. Once I saw the results and I saw that the second round would be a face-off between these two, the polar extremes, I knew that it was going to be really bad, because that guy was very presidential. So he had the demeanor, he had the manner of speaking, he had the CV. Apparently, he had all the attributes to be a good president. Also, he had the best speech, the best manner of speaking out of all the candidates. So out of all 14, incidentally, the crop this year, the electoral crop, had been quite disastrous. So the big parties had candidates who were barely literate. They were retards almost. So it wasn't hard for Călin Georgescu to stand out. But because the system went absolutely crazy and didn't know how to handle this, and because it would have been unacceptable for Romania to vote for a candidate and for that candidate to become president, a person that would threaten Romania's course in not only in NATO and in the EU, but also with regard to the war in Ukraine, because Romania being Ukraine's neighbor with the longest border, probably except Russia, surely except Russia, it is a very important logistical hub. So you can imagine the war in Ukraine, the fate of the war would have been sealed had Romania been allowed to choose this candidate who was against the war. Because on the other sides of the western border of Ukraine, you have Hungary, which also does not support the war. You have Slovakia, which also does not support the war. So the only land connection with Ukraine would have been Poland, quite far from Odessa, quite far from the territories, the Russian-speaking territories where the battles might have been fought, in case such a decision would have been taken to send European ground troops into Ukraine. Anyway, so the system deemed it unacceptable for Călin Georgescu to become president. Therefore, it started to panic. So there was a string of strange and, I would say, illegal decisions made by the Constitutional Court, in the sense that it cancelled its own previous decisions which had become executory. So the first thing that happened was that the highest security body of Romania was called, and they discussed there. So the president with the heads of the secret services and some people from government, they discussed whether or not there was Russian interference, because of course this was the first trace that they had. How could such a candidate come out of nowhere and win the elections, win the first round? So Of course, they called it Russian interference, and it was noticed that on TikTok there was a campaign being run for this candidate for Călin Georgescu. Călin Georgescu himself did not run any ads on any platform because he declared his campaign to be with zero funds. So essentially, his campaign was being run by some volunteers. He chose a very interesting way of campaigning. So essentially, he put out in the public sphere, in the public domain, interviews for like 10 years on podcasts, on platforms of various kinds. He put out a lot of material in these 3 years when he's been in this political space, gravitating in this political arena. He's written several books. He had an NGO, and that NGO had a program regarding agriculture, regarding how to base Romania's economy on water, energy, food, as he put it. There was a lot of material out there that he put out. So his strategy was to say, just like Jesus with the apostles, So he said, okay, this is me, this is all the material that I've put out in the last 10 years. Feel free to do a campaign for me. If you're my fans, then you can take anything that I've said and put it together in videos, in clips, in whatever brochures, and put them out, and I'm not involved, essentially. So he let his apostles just do the campaign for him, which they did. Of course, the Romanian secret services found all sorts of Romanian businessmen financing ad campaigns for him, stuff like this. So far, I have not seen a trace connecting this to Russia. Maybe there is. I have no idea. So, as I told you, I was not involved in Călin Georgescu's campaign. I didn't even think that he would make it into the second round. I was not advocating for people to vote for him. I'm very far removed from the phenomenon called Călin Georgescu. This may have been a Russian operation. Maybe this is what they say now. Could have been. But the point is that the evidence that the secret services came up with in this session of the National Security Council was apparently not strong enough to persuade the Constitutional Court to cancel the elections. There was a motion filed against Călin Georgescu and calling for the annulment of the first round, and that was dismissed. So the Constitutional Court convened 2 or 3 days after the first round. And there were two contestations. There were two motions against the first round, calling for it to be annulled, and the one regarding Călin Georgescu and the way he financed his campaign, that was dismissed. The other one was taken into consideration. There was a recount done about the other one, which was about Lasconi, and from that point onwards, there's a series of strange events. So Lasconi was very close to the third candidate, Ciolacu, from the biggest party, the Social Democrats. There was a difference of only 2,000 votes, and apparently the recount did not show that difference could have been reversed. So the Constitutional Court also dismissed that challenge to the first round and decided to let things move forward. After, as I said, having already dismissed the charge against Călin Georgescu. And then the first round was validated, and things were set in motion for the second round. Of course, we've also had parliamentary elections in the meantime. There was quite a strong sovereigntist wave sweeping through parliament. So they obtained like 40% of the mandates, divided between three parties, three sovereigntist parties, and all sorts of other connections, murky connections between Călin Georgescu and all sorts of, in this case, not so much Russian agents, but rather far right agents started to appear. So in the end, he was associated with some neo-fascist organizations, and in the end, the election was called off, even though, legally speaking, the first round had been validated. The Constitutional Court had issued the validation of the first round, and that was final. And subsequently, in order for the first round or for the second round to be invalidated, a new motion had to be filed against it, and no such motion was filed. I understand that the Constitutional Court cannot just decide on its own; it has to be convened. It has to be an appeal has to be made, but apparently this procedure was not taken into consideration. The Constitutional Court just decided on Friday to just cancel the second round of the vote, which had already started in the diaspora, so with the Romanians voting abroad, and to basically annul, to just invalidate the first round altogether, and now we will have presidential elections sometime next year with new candidates, with the same process of the parties putting forth candidates, or independent candidates putting forth their candidacies and collecting signatures. You need to have 200,000 signatures to run, and then the electoral office needs to validate your candidacy, which is quite arbitrary because they have no competence to say whether those signatures are real or not. They just need to count them, and if the number is reached, then they have to let you run. But apparently this is being done selectively to not allow some candidates to run, and subsequently the Constitutional Court will also probably invalidate some candidates. And I'm really curious, this is my curiosity. Okay, so let's say in April we have presidential elections again. What if Russia or some other state, hostile state, as they say, what if they will also sponsor some candidate? What if they, I don't know, what if they donate money to the campaign of a candidate? What then? Will we do another rerun? So will we again cancel the process altogether? And so I don't quite see how we can escape this thing. So once you say that there is Russian interference, of course they also said there was Russian interference in the case of Trump in 2016. Maybe there was. The official case was investigated and the result came out negative. So in the end, there was no legal case to be found regarding Russian interference in American elections. I don't know if this case now here will turn out a similar result or not. But what if Russia or another state agent just decides to do a campaign online for one of the candidates, to taint the candidacy of one of the candidates? This is, I think, a bug for democracy in general, because if the rule becomes that we just cancel the elections when we find Russian interference, then Russia has an incentive to just interfere, over and over again, for us to cancel the elections over and over again. So I don't exactly know how we can overcome that. So this is my summary. This is what the situation is now. Thanks for watching, and until next time, bye.